The world applauds the result. It rarely sees the effort. So when you look at someone winning, you're not seeing the whole thing. You're seeing the end, the highlight, the outcome, the part that's easy to recognize. But what you don't see is everything that made it possible. And that's where most people lose perspective, because they compare their beginning to someone else's finish. And when it doesn't match, they assume something is off, like they're behind, like they're not built for it, like they're missing something. But nothing is off. You're just seeing two different parts of the process, one that's visible and one that isn't. And the part that isn't is where everything actually happens, because results don't come from moments. They come from repetition. They come from showing up when nothing feels like it's moving. They come from doing the same thing over and over without getting immediate feedback. And that's the part that doesn't get attention. That's the part that doesn't get posted. That's the part that doesn't get applauded because it doesn't look impressive. It looks quiet. It looks slow. It looks like nothing is happening, but that's where everything is building. Let me ask you something. If no one ever saw what you were doing, would you still do it? If there was no recognition, no validation, no acknowledgement, would you still show up the same way? Because that's the real test. Not what you do when people are watching, but what you do when there's nothing to gain from being seen. That's where effort lives. And effort doesn't feel good most of the time. It feels repetitive. It feels unnoticed. It feels like you're putting in work that isn't paying off yet. And that yet is where most people stop. Not because they can't continue, but because they don't see anything happening. So they assume nothing is. They pull back. They slow down. They start looking for something else that feels more immediate. Something that gives faster feedback. Because waiting without proof feels like wasted effort. But it's not. It's just effort that hasn't surfaced yet. That's the difference. And the ones who understand that keep going anyway. Not because they're certain, but because they've accepted that effort comes first and recognition comes later, sometimes much later. And that gap is where discipline is built. Because discipline isn't about intensity. It's about consistency. When nothing is happening, it's about continuing without needing proof every step of the way. It's about trusting that what you're doing is stacking even when it's not visible yet. And that's hard because your mind wants confirmation. It wants to know that what you're doing is working. It wants something to point to, something that says, this is paying off. But most of the time, you won't have that. You'll have effort. That's it. Now let's make this real, because it's easy to hear this and still not recognize where you're doing it. Think about how this shows up in your life. You start something. It could be anything. Working out, trying to get your finances right, building a routine. At the beginning, there's energy. You're locked in. You're focused. You're consistent. And then a few days pass, a few weeks, and nothing really looks different yet. The scale doesn't move. Your situation feels the same. Your routine starts to feel repetitive. So now your mind starts asking questions. Is this working? Am I doing this right? Should I try something else? And that's the moment. That's the exact moment where effort starts to feel like a problem. Not because it is, but because it's not producing something visible yet. So what do most people do? They adjust. They switch. They restart. Not because the process was wrong, but because the result didn't show up fast enough. That's the cycle. And if you don't see it clearly, you'll keep repeating it without realizing why nothing sticks. That's why most people never build anything that lasts. Not because they lack ability, but because they don't stay long enough for effort to turn into something visible. Let me give you a different way to look at it. Effort is like building a foundation. If you walked onto a construction site and looked at a building in progress, you wouldn't expect to see the finished structure immediately. You'd see dirt, concrete, framework. It wouldn't look impressive. It would look incomplete. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means the part that matters most is being built first. And nobody celebrates that part. Nobody stops and says, look at that foundation. They wait until it's finished. Then they applaud the result. That's exactly how effort works. Here's another way to see it. Think about going to the gym. You don't go one time and walk out different. You don't go 5 times and suddenly look like a different person for weeks. It feels the same. You're doing the work, but the mirror doesn't reflect it yet. And if you only relied on what you could see, you'd quit. But the people who stay consistent understand something different. They understand that effort shows up before results do always. So let's reverse it, because this doesn't change by feeling more motivated. It changes by how you approach effort itself. The first shift is this. Stop measuring effort by what it produces right now. Because effort doesn't show up immediately, it accumulates. So instead of asking, "What is this doing for me today?" ask, "What am I building over time?" The second shift, commit to a window. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, where no matter what you see, you don't stop. The third shift, detach from recognition, because recognition is delayed, always. If you need validation to continue, you'll stop the moment it doesn't show up. The fourth shift, shorten your feedback loop. Did you do what you said you would do? The fifth shift, stay through the quiet phase. No attention, no movement, no visible change. Just repetition, because once effort finally surfaces, it looks sudden, but it wasn't. It was built over time, in silence, without recognition, and that's the part people never see. They just see the result, and they applaud it, but they don't understand it, because they never stayed long enough to experience what it took to get there. So if you take anything from this, the result you want is built in a phase that doesn't look like progress. And if you can stay there long enough, everything changes.